So buenos dias from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Now, I'm making this video today. It's a little bit different from what I usually do. And the reason for that is I want to address the events of what went on Sunday with the cartel activity here in Puerto Vallarta. Now, you guys know me. Well, for those of you who are my subscribers and watch my videos, you know me and you guys know that I always try to give an honest assessment of how things are here in Puerto Vallarta. You know, I've talked in videos about the pros and cons of living here, and I do point out the cons as well as the pros so that you have a good idea of what this area is like and what it's like to live here. And then you make your own decision as to whether you want to move here or not. Today, I want to talk about what happened here and how it might affect the Puerto Vallarta area. So if you've been looking at the headlines over the last 48 hours, you might think Puerto Vallarta has turned into a movie set of an action thriller or something like that in Hollywood.
Drug lords wage bloody warfare in the streets.
You've seen the images, you've seen smoke on the horizon, you've seen charred vehicles, and the words code red splashed all across international news. Now, it is scary, and I get that. If I were sitting in an office in Seattle or in Toronto or San Francisco or New York, looking at these clips without context, I'd be asking myself, is it still safe to go there? Is it still safe to live there? Today, I'm going to step away from the sensationalism. We're going to talk about what actually happened on Sunday. I want to talk about why it happened and why, despite what the 24-hour news cycle wants you to believe, this was an isolated incident, an anomaly that's nothing to do with the everyday reality of life in beautiful Puerto Vallarta. Now, Puerto Vallarta isn't just fine, it's already back on its feet. And let me get into some of the facts. So let's address the elephant in the room, the events of February 22nd, just this past Sunday. Now, this wasn't a random act of violence against the public. It was a very specific, very localized retaliatory protest. Earlier that day, the Mexican government conducted a high-level military operation that resulted in the death of the cartel leader known as El Mencho, and you've heard his name a lot lately, right? He was the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Now, regardless of the politics involved, when a figure of that magnitude is taken out, there's a standard playbook that usually follows in Mexico. And it's called narcobloqueos or something like that. It means roadblock protests. So this was a reaction to a government action. It lasted exactly one day, and it was only 5 hours from about 8:30 in the morning to 1 p.m. It was a flash in the pan event designed to create a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, and signal a message to the federal government. But here's the most important part that the international media often leaves out. There were no deaths, there were no injuries to the public in Puerto Vallarta whatsoever. No tourists were targeted, no residents were harmed. The focus of these groups was strictly on property destruction, burning cars and buses, and they did burn a couple of the Oxxo corner stores and Kioskos. So understanding the targets, let's talk about that. You might have seen footage of these Oxxo or Kioskos corner stores with smoke coming out of them. Now, there's a reason for that. There's a common misconception that those stores are government owned. They're actually privately owned by companies like FEMSA. Now, they're often viewed as symbols of the establishment or the corporate face of the country. In these rare retaliatory events, the goal isn't to hurt people, it's to cause a logistical headache for the state. They target these ubiquitous corner stores and public transit because it creates a visual of chaos that forces the government to pay attention. Is it frustrating? Yes, for sure. Is it destructive? Absolutely. But is it a threat to you as a person walking down the street? Absolutely not. The people inside were given time to leave. The goal was the building, not the souls inside. It's a huge distraction that gets lost in the breaking news banners, and that's a fact. So you've heard about the code red, and let me talk about that versus the reality. The code red you heard also sounds terrifying. In reality, a code red is a standard administrative protocol. It's the government saying everyone stay home while we clear the debris and make sure the roads are safe. It's not a war zone. It's a temporary precaution. The city took a collective pause for about 24 hours, and by Monday morning, yesterday morning, the cleanup had already begun, and it continues today. So this is what people who don't live here don't understand about Puerto Vallarta. This is a community-oriented city. Within hours of the fires being extinguished, locals were out with brooms and buckets. There's no lingering debris. There is no sense of defeat. Puerto Vallarta is a town that takes care of its own. So when things get weird, neighbors check on neighbors. The local taxi and Uber drivers, who are the eyes and ears of the city, were back on the roads almost immediately. We're not going to wait for weeks to recover because there isn't much to recover from other than a few insurance claims for some burnt out storefronts and cars and buses. We expect to be 100% back to normal within a couple of days, and I'm already seeing that today. Whenever something like this happens in Mexico, the travel advisories go through the roof. But let's compare the danger of Puerto Vallarta to what many of us consider safe back in the US or Canada. You know, in the US, we deal with a level of random, senseless violence that simply doesn't exist here. There's school shootings, mall shootings, and random acts of violence in subways and grocery stores that happen without warning and without a target. In Puerto Vallarta, everyday violence, the kind that affects the average Joe, is almost non-existent. You can walk the Malecon at 2 a.m. with your phone in your hand and feel safer than you would in downtown Chicago, Los Angeles, or even parts of Toronto at the same hour. You know, what we saw this weekend was a political event. It was organized, it was specific, and it was over in 24 hours. It wasn't random. You aren't going to get caught in a random event here, simply because the community doesn't allow it. The safety statistics in Puerto Vallarta for tourists and expats consistently ranks it among the safest cities in the hemisphere. So I want you to visualize a typical Tuesday in Puerto Vallarta. In this everyday life, there are no cartels, there are no sirens, there are no code reds. There's just a city that moves a little slower, smiles a little more, and values peace above all else. Again, the events of this past Sunday were an anomaly, a black swan event that happened because of a very specific death of a very specific person. It is not the trend. It is not the new normal. So I want to give this message to visitors and future visitors and future residents. Please don't be afraid. If you have a flight booked for next week, or if you've been looking at real estate here, I have one message for you. Don't let a 24-hour anomaly steal your dream. Puerto Vallarta is not a dangerous place. Now, the people who live here, the expats who move from Canada and the US, the retirees from the US, the locals who have been here for generations, we're not packing our bags. We're going to dinner tonight. We're going to the beach tomorrow. We know the difference between the headlines and the reality on the ground here. So Puerto Vallarta is often called the friendliest city in the world, and events like this actually prove why. When the world looks at us and sees a crisis, we look at each other and see a community. We clean up, we move on, and we keep the lights on for you. So if you're worried about coming here, moving here, coming for a vacation, take a deep breath. Look at the live cams of the Malecon. Look at the people laughing in the restaurants. That is the real Puerto Vallarta. The smoke is cleared, the sun is out, and we're waiting for you with open arms. So don't live in fear of the headlines. Live in the reality of the experience. Puerto Vallarta is safe, it's strong, and it's still the paradise that you fell in love with. Now, if you found this video helpful and helped to quell your fears a little bit, or if you have any questions about the current state of the city, please drop a comment below. I'm here to give you the boots on the ground truth. And if you're ready to see what life is actually like here, check out my other videos on the best neighborhoods and how to make the move. So thanks again for listening to my message today. And, I hope that you got something from this, and do not listen to the sensationalism of the media and the press up in the States and Canada. Do not believe everything you hear in the mainstream media, because they are sensationalizing it. Today is Tuesday, and I've been out already this morning driving around. Things are back to normal. People are on the streets, people are driving around, people are going to work, and it's quiet. The restaurants are open, the airport is open, and everything is returning to normal. So I hope that we see you soon in Puerto Vallarta. I look forward to it.